Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Lately there's been a huge debate going around surrounding transgender kids. The main argument is that children can't possibly know their gender identity at that young of an age. They can't possibly make these dire decisions at that young of an age. In this week's video, I want to talk about some of the most well-known cases of transgender kids, and I'll also be talking to a friend of mine who transitioned at a fairly young age to hopefully highlight some of the positives of transitioning at a young age. I post new videos every Thursday here on my channel, so if you guys are not subscribed already, go do that right now. Thank you very much. I feel like that sounded exactly like I said it like a few times ago. Thank you very much. But with no further ado, let's get right into the first kid. That sounds bad. I meant to say the first case and then I said kid. Let's get into the first. Let's move into the first case, okay? So the first case that I want to talk about is a case that was made famous by right-wing outlets in an attempt to persuade their audience that kids are being forced to transition, blah, blah, blah. Outlets like the Daily Wire, even a fellow trans YouTuber named Blaire have posted videos on this case, this child, and they have completely framed it from the father's perspective. A video recorded by the father has actually gone viral, and channels like Blaire's have actually cut up that video to make it look like the father is this hero and that he is saving this child. As you can see in the beginning of this video and then again at the end of this video, Luna herself does not think that she's a boy. She says that she's a girl. The dad asks, "What does she do with your nails?" You know, trying to get a response of, "Mom makes me paint my nails," anything like that. But then when Luna responds by saying that the mom paints her nails, the dad asks why, and Luna responds with, "Because I like my nails painted," or "I like the way that the polish looks." However, in videos like Blaire's, both of these parts are cut out. I wonder why. And if you really need further proof that this was not being forced on Luna, like Blaire and all these other right-wing outlets will make you believe, you can just look at the court transcript of the testimonies provided by both of the parents, the children, a child protective services agent, friends of the family, and the child's therapist. I've actually taken the liberty to grab some of the most telling quotes from the transcript. You're welcome. So here, the court asks the child protective services agent who did the full investigation on Luna's mom and Luna. They're asked if Luna is being forced by the mom whatsoever. They say no. They then ask if the father is forcing Luna to dress as a boy, and they say yes. Furthermore, James, which is Luna's father, admits himself in this court testimony, this court, whatever it is, that he would not allow Luna to express her feminine identity, even if that's what she chose, even if that's what the doctors recommended. You may be saying that Luna's father is just acting with, Luna's best interest at heart, and he just doesn't want to see any harm come her way. According to multiple medical professionals, one of which the father actually chose, Luna has been diagnosed with gender dysphoria, and they say that the gender-affirming method, so calling Luna by Luna, using she/her pronouns, allowing her to dress as a girl, is what is best for her mental health. James admits himself that he does not agree with the medical professionals and is not willing to do what they say. And just for funsies, to lighten the mood, here's a little clip of James. He does some speeches and podcasts. I don't really know, but I just thought this might give you an idea of why he is so controlling, if you want to say that. I don't really know if you would call it controlling, but you could just say controlling to be nice. Why he acts that way with Luna. So just take a look.
6 years and 10 months ago, the good Lord gave me 2 sons. I named after the brothers of Jesus. They were baptized and dedicated to a life in Christ. I've been unable to teach him traditional Christian teachings on sexuality and gender, and I can't let him go to Sunday school because in my church, pretty much like yours, we teach this as just men and women.
Since it's totally against my religious beliefs to affirm him as a girl, I have never assented to my son presenting as a girl. This is how I've been able to handle it. I've said, look, don't listen to me. I read you the book of Genesis every night before you go to bed. What does the Bible say? That's your answer.
So yeah, to wrap up this first case, the Daily Wire, Blaire, all these channels don't know what they're talking about. They literally all use this one bullshit article as their source, which was written by a detransitioner, just to let you guys know. You guys have probably seen this detransitioner online. They're famous for being super turfy and not cute, but we'll just move on. If you want to do some more reading or even some more watching, I found a great video and some great links about this whole Luna Younger case. It's literally just a huge hate smear campaign against the mother. If that mother is watching this for whatever reason, girl, I support you. You are doing the greatest thing. I love you. Keep doing you. Moving on to the next case. I've talked about this case a little bit before, but since so many people want to use it against the trans community, I'll talk about it again, just for y'all. So Bruce Reimer was born in 1965, and after a botched circumcision, he was raised as a girl. Just to clarify again, he's not transgender. He was born male and then was raised as a girl without his like consent, without his knowledge. You know, his parents literally never even told him that he was, you know, born a boy. His parents were convinced at the time by a prominent psychologist and sexologist, John Money, that gender was malleable and it was a social construct and it would be in their child's best interest to be raised as a girl. I just want to do a quick side note and highlight where John Money went wrong with his theory that gender was a construct and then it was malleable. I've said it before, I do believe that gender as a whole is socially constructed. I think that the idea of gender is socially constructed, but that's not what he's arguing. He was arguing that gender identity, so your internal sense of self, could be shaped or changed completely by one's environment. Bruce Reimer's parents actually agreed with Dr. Money, and then Bruce ended up going through a gender reassignment surgery type thing when he was a baby, when he was an infant. This case has been misused for a long time to prove the malleability of gender and to say that, you know, surgery on intersex babies is okay because, you know, you can just change the gender that they were born as. But that is not the case. Reimer reported severe gender dysphoria throughout all of childhood. He completely rejected his female identity, and he even threatened to commit suicide if he was brought back to Dr. Money in his teenage years. It's also kind of important to note that John Money was like really fucked up. He allegedly like abused them during the treatments, and yeah, that obviously plays a huge role in, you know, why he hated Dr. Money so much, but the point that you can't change gender identity still stands. After consistently rejecting his female identity, his parents actually ended up telling him about his botched circumcision and, you know, how he was raised as a girl even though he was born a boy. I think from like that moment, or right around that moment, he started living his life as David Reimer. He like, you could say he detransitioned, or he went back to living as the sex he was assigned at birth. Well, I guess he was assigned it at birth and then like reassigned it like a few months later. I don't really know what you would say, but you guys know what I'm talking about. So the reason that I wanted to talk about this case is that a lot of people, even trans people, think that this case proves that gender is not a social construct. What this case really proves is that gender identity cannot be forced on somebody, or somebody's gender identity cannot be changed. In Bruce/David Reimer's case, he was assigned male at birth and his gender identity was male. Even though his psychologist and his parents were telling him he was a girl, for his whole life, his internal sense of self was male. I think this case is a great example of why we can't force gender identity on anybody, whether it be an identity that aligns with their birth sex or it be an identity that doesn't align with their birth sex. In the Reimer case, we see that gender identity is unchangeable. No matter how hard Dr. Money tried to convince Bruce that he was a girl, he knew that he was not. The same is true for transgender kids. No matter how hard you try to force transgender kids to identify with their birth sex, if they don't identify with it, they don't identify with it. So moving on to the last little case study that I have for this video, it's a super common misconception that kids that transition at a young age will grow out of their gender dysphoria and end up regretting their transition. This is not true, and it is extremely unlikely to happen when the appropriate steps are taken. While I'm sure there are children out there that only experience gender dysphoria before puberty and then grow out of it once they do reach puberty, gender specialists, at least good gender specialists, would never refer children that they are not 100, I don't know why I said 100 like 3 times. I guess 300% sure that that child is going to, you know, forever be transgender. How do they do that, you ask? Well, let me tell you. So the DSM-5 actually details the criteria that one must meet to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria as an adult. However, they actually have a separate, more extensive, more strict set of criteria for diagnosing children with gender dysphoria. I'm like getting ahead of myself, I like can't speak. So with adults, 2 of these 6 criteria must be met for them to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria. And for children, 6 out of 8 of these criteria must be met for them to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I want to share a little testimony, if you will, from a friend of mine named Emily Chessa. I asked her experience with transitioning at a young age, how it impacted her mental health, you know, her experience with gender dysphoria, all that kind of good stuff. So I want to just read what she had to say for you guys. Obviously, I'm asking questions in between each of these responses, so they might seem a little bit choppy, but they all go together, okay? Don't worry. Ever since I could express myself from around the age of 4, I've always known I'm a girl and made it very clear to my family too. My whole early childhood, I was consistent, persistent, and insistent about my gender identity. When I realized the way I felt wasn't normal for a little boy to feel, I was so ashamed and I felt so alone. My mom showed me a Jazz Jennings interview when I was around 7 years old. When I saw that, I finally didn't feel alone anymore, and I learned that I can live my life authentically as the woman I am. I socially transitioned when I was 10 years old, started blockers when I was 12, and then hormones when I was 13. I've been so lucky to have a supportive family who has loved me unconditionally and just let me be me. The most recent and final steps in my transition was last summer when I had my gender reassignment surgery. It felt like my whole life had led up to that moment after 17 years of hating my given genitalia. In my experience, transitioning young has been vital for me. I've been able to go through female puberty and have how I feel inside match how I look on the outside. If I hadn't been able to transition, I don't think I would be here today. I always knew that I wanted to have a vagina from a young age and hated having a penis. It was like I was living a double life pretending to be a boy at school, and then when I came home, I dressed up in my Hannah Montana and Disney princess outfits and felt like myself. I started going to therapy when I was 5 or 6 years old because I made it very clear to my parents that I was unhappy and felt like a girl. I went to multiple therapists until I found the right one for me. I started hormone blockers when I was 12 years old, and I needed to have a letter from my therapist. After being on blockers for a year, I started hormones at 13. I had a great endocrinologist who totally understood me and knew that I wanted to start hormones then to go through female puberty like the rest of my friends I was in school with. It was such a happy day for me when I took my first estrogen pill, and then when I started to see the changes in my body like curves and breast development. I then asked her if she thought transitioning at a young age saved her from some of the dysphoria that people who transition later in life have to go through. Starting hormones helped me feel a lot more comfortable in my body, and my bottom surgery that I had when I was 17 was the final step for me in my transition, and I'm the happiest I've ever been now at 19 years old. She said I'd also just mention that my parents never forced anything on me, and I've always just been so straightforward about who I am and what I want in life, and my family has always been 100% supportive of that. I knew I needed to be on hormone blockers, but early, because I didn't want to go through male puberty at all. I remember my biggest fear before being on blockers was that I was going to grow facial hair and that my voice would deepen. As you can see or hear from reading a little bit about Emily, she met the criteria for gender dysphoria in children and was able to transition at a relatively young age. She emphasized that she was never forced to do anything by her parents, but rather that she was just supported and accepted for who she was by her parents. She mentioned that she's happier than she's ever been before and that her transition is now complete after doing her bottom surgery. That alone speaks to the benefit of transitioning at a young age. For most trans women that transition later in life, bottom surgery alone is not enough to complete their transition. For example, for me, and I transitioned at 18, so still relatively young, I've had 5 major surgeries to undo the effects that testosterone have had on my body. 5, bitch. 5. And that's not including the 2 bottom surgeries that I had. Of course, everyone is different and not everybody is going to need or want the surgeries that I've had done, but you get the point. If medical professionals are giving you advice on how to treat your child's condition, why wouldn't you listen? Anyways, you guys, that is it for this week's video. Feel free to leave any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that you have down in the comments down below. I'm going to be reading and responding to a lot of the comments that you guys leave. I know that this is a very sensitive subject for a lot of people, but it really shouldn't be. Again, I'm gonna link some articles and some videos down below about trans kids. So if you wanna read more about Luna Younger or, any of the other cases, feel free to look down there. I'm also gonna link Emily's socials, so if you wanna check Emily out, go do that. Make sure that you guys subscribe if you are not already and you would like to be. Give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it. And yeah, other than that, I think I'm going to go. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.